Today I'm going to do lesson 4 in my Roblox beginner series. You don't have to do them in order, but today we're going to look at while loops. We're going to look at the C-frame, particularly C-Frame.Angles to make a coin spin. And then we're also going to spawn a non-blocking thread, which is convenient because you might want your script to do other things rather than just run a while loop. For instance, my coin stops when somebody touches it and then starts back up after 4 seconds. And then finally, we're going to add a configuration folder to our model so that we could change parameters outside of code. So if you want to change your speed of your coin, you don't have to go through your code and find out where they define the speed. So let's go ahead and get started with our lesson 4. I will put a link in the description for the entire beginner series. I have an empty base plate here. There's nothing in my world. And I want to add a part. So I'm on the Home tab. I'm going to go over the part, and I have cylinder selected. But if you don't have cylinder selected, you can hit that little arrow, cylinder, and let's change that part to coin. That's going to be our coin. I'm going to rotate our part. Make sure collisions are off. Hit rotate. If collisions are on, it might bump against the ground, and you might have trouble rotating it. Sweet. There we go. And I'm also going to make this thinner. Maybe change the color first though, because I see brick color right here. Brick color, I'll make it, how about bright yellow? Let's go down, ooh, size. I think the first number is the thickness. You could try it out though. Let's do a 0.2 on the X, that's the first number. That works, right? That works. Cool. We want to bump this up a little bit so it's floating in the sky. So go to position. And right now, the Y, so that's the height of the object, I have it at 1.01. How about we just make it 3? That's pretty good. And let's also anchor it so it doesn't fall. Anchored on, that's checked. And then I don't want people jumping on the coin or the coin bumping into people. So let's turn can collide off. Now, we're going to make this coin rotate. But we can anchor the coin and then change it with code. You just can't change where it's at with game object when it's anchored. But with code, you can. So it's no problem. Now, in order for you to be able to look this up in the shared game, I'll put a link in the description of that. This is lesson 4. Let's go ahead and right-click coin. And we're going to put that in a model, group as model. We're going to call that lesson 4. Right, so then you could just look it up if you need any of the source code. Nice. Let's open our lesson 4. There's our coin. What else should we put on there? Well, let's put a decal on our coin so that we could see it if it's spinning this way, right? We'll be able to see it if it's spinning around that green rotation area right there, the y-axis. Let's go to our toolbox and get something so that we could see it if it's spinning around the red axis, right? The x-axis. If it's spinning this way and it's solid, you're not going to see it. So let's go to decals, and I'm going to do coin. And let's see if we can see the one. Oh, I think this is the one. This should work. It's not the one in the demo, but it should work. I'm going to click on this, and it got inserted under the model because I had the model selected. Let's just drag it onto the coin. Right, so this is a coin object. This is a coin decal. Shouldn't be that big of a deal to have the same name because they're different things. Notice the decal is on the bottom. We don't want that. So go with the decal selected, take a look at the face, and we're going to need I think it's left and right. There we go. There is the left face. Let's make another one. Control D to duplicate that coin decal. This one we'll put on the right so that it's on the other side too. That's pretty good. All right, let's get rid of this. Let's select our coin. That actually selects the model, right? Let's select the coin itself because that's what we're going to put the script on. And notice there's no little L here. That's the local mode for the move and rotate and scale. I want that local mode. I want to see this little L. So I'm going to hold the control button down, hit L, boom. And you can see how these arrows change direction. I want the green arrow up, which is also convenient for my decal. So then the decal will be facing the right direction too. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to hit that rotate button there if you didn't see what I did. Let's just move this. Let's take a look at our move again. Ah, yeah, the green is up and down. I want that because when I rotate, I'm going to rotate on the y-axis, which is going to make it spin this way. And then we'll do one with the x-axis too, just so you see it. And then, of course, it'll work on the z. Now let's add a script to our coin to make the coin spin. Before we do that, take a look at this green axis right here. That is the y-axis. We're going to need to know that. So now let's go to the coin, hit the plus, S for script. Go ahead and add a regular script. Change the name of the script to something that makes sense. I'm going to call it spin. Now I'm going to get rid of this print statement. I do not need it. I'm going to make a variable for my coin. I'm going to say local coin equals script.parent, right? So the coin is the parent of the script. Now we're going to do a while loop, right? So say while true do. What does this do? This will execute code over and over, everything in between this while and this end, as long as the condition is true. Since we hard-coded it to true, it will spin as long as the server is running, right? Or if there's an error, something happens to the script. I'm going to put a task.wait to put a little pause, a little tiny pause in that loop, right? Because we're going to incrementally turn our coin. This is really fast. This is 0.03 seconds, about that, right? And then let's get the coin itself. On the coin, there's the CFrame. Determines position and orientation of the base part, which a coin, a game object or a game part is a base part. All right, so we got our CFrame. We're going to take the coin's old CFrame. Oops, that's a front surface. Old CFrame. And then we're going to multiply it by the CFrames class angles, right? The Euler angles. And we have an X, a Y, and a Z. Right? Remember, I was telling you about that Y. That's what we need. So I'm going to make 0, no rotation for the X for now. I want to rotate the Y in 5-degree increments every loop iteration. So it's a slow turn. I played with it to get the number I want, but this needs radians, right? So if you don't know the difference between degrees and radians, get this math.rad for radian, and then you could put 5 in here. You could put the degrees in there. Right now, you don't have to convert it in your head. You don't have to be like, oh, that's about 0.03 or whatever it is. 0.08, I think it is for radians. Close. Doesn't matter. We know this is 5 degrees. All right, let's play this and see what we got. I'm going to hit the play button. And there's my coin. And it's turning. Right? So we got it running. If we go to our view and output window, make sure there's no scary red stuff down here. Means there's an error. But we don't have an error, right? Everything's good. No scary red stuff. Let's turn this off. Let's go back to spin. And I'm going to close my output window. I'm going to do a little bit more with this script. Now we can rotate on the X, the Y, or the Z. And this is kind of complicated right here. We got a lot going on in this line. So I am going to cut this out, this math.rad 5 degrees. I'm going to do Control X. And I'm just going to put a variable here. Let's call that Y. I will say local Y equals. And then I'll just move this up here. This will make the line a little smaller so it makes more sense. It's easier to understand. Now we can actually change the axes we want to rotate, right? But I'm not going to change it to X, Y, or Z. I'm just going to use Y for everything, right? So we'll have Y and 0. Let's see what happens if you put the value in that first slot right there. There we go. And we can see that it is now rotating around the x-axis. That's pretty cool. Let's just go ahead and check, make sure we don't have any errors. Nope, looking good. And just for completeness, let's go back and change it to the Z part. And you'll see that it's going to go end over end. Let's hit play. There we go. So you can modify this however you want it. Let's turn the game off. We'll go back to our script. I'm going to close the output window, go to spin. Let's add a few more things. We'll also move this back to the actual Y position. And if you want to have it X, Y, and Z, I recommend making variables for X, Y, and Z. Don't just move it around like that. It's good for demo, but not for production code. Now, what I want to do is I want to stop my coin when something touches it. Stop it for like 5 seconds or whatever time you want. I'm going to make a function, local function. Whoops, I spelled it wrong. Function. And let's call this spin coin. And I don't have any parameters getting passed in. I'll get this while loop though. And Control X to cut, Control V to paste. And now I have my while loop in here. But I have to call it somehow, right? I can't just let it run. So if I do spin coin, that will call it. But if I do a print statement or something underneath this, this will not ever run. And I go to play, notice we are not going to get this to ever run. Let's go ahead and hit the play, go to view output, and it's not running, right? It's not running because our while loop is tying everything up. We come in here, we read all this, we call the spin never ends. All right, well, what do we do? What do we do with that? If I go and I spawn a thread, it used to just be spawn. Now we have task.spawn. It's a new and improved spawn. If you don't have any parameters, just use the function name. If you do have parameters, I might as well go ahead and show you. Do function, spell function right though, and come down here, open and close parentheses, end. And you would put your parameters in like that. So you'd have to have a function inside of a function defined here for a function with parameters, right? Just if you're curious, if you want parameters to come in there. We don't need them. I just want you to know how to do it. Sweet. Get rid of this end. That was a little clunky. Sorry about that. But now this will print out. This will definitely print out. So if we go ahead and play it, view output, sweet. This will never run. But it did because we spawned a thread. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Go back to spin, close your output window. Let's go ahead and get a variable, and that way we can evaluate this condition right here to see if we want to break out of our while loop. And I am going to put the variable right here. I'll say local. How about is spinning? Or you could do like can spin or something like that. Something that makes sense for you. We are going to initialize it as true. I'm going to grab this, Control C. I'll paste it right here, Control V. Is spinning. We will not need this. We know that it printed out. So if I want to hook up my coin touched event, connect that to, let's see, another function, say on touch, right? We haven't defined on touch. We can do that. I think I'll put on touch maybe up here. You can really put it anywhere. I'll put it closer to here, right? That way we can see everything together. Say local function on touch, and I'm not going to check to see if it's humanoid. The part that touched the coin will get passed in, right? The coin touched event will pass in that other part that touched the coin, but we won't do any checks. We'll just assume, we'll just stop the coin if anything touches it, which isn't that unreasonable, right? Something touches the coin, you stop it. And then we'll just make that false. All right, now that will do it. Somebody touches it, it's going to stop forever. We haven't started it. We haven't done any code to start it again. Sweet, we'll go back to view, output, looking good. Turn this off, go back to spin. Close my output window. Now the downside to having the loop control variable, or the loop condition right here defined in our script is you can't get here from outside the script. So maybe you might want to have a button or something, or maybe a UI button that sends something to the server to turn the coin off. What you're going to need to do, let's say go to the coin here, and add a bool val. Now this can be changed from other server-side scripts. It's external to our script. I'm going to call this bool val. How about is spinning, right? And this has a value down here, this little checkbox thing. If you check it, it's true. If you don't check it, it's false. Let's check it. Let's start it out as true. Now this spin right here, instead of having hard-coded true, we can get our coin, and then you could do dot is spinning, but I think I'm just going to be a little bit safer and do a wait for child. Server startup and all. You usually don't have to do this server side. You always have to do it on a client, right? Because client stuff gets added after the server's already running, right? So this would work either way, right? So is spinning will get me that value, that is spinning bool val. So this is going to be a little different here. This is no longer just a number variable. It's a bool val object. So we actually have to do dot value. You will forget that. It'll get frustrating, but you get used to it. All right, so down here also, when we go to set it, we have to do a dot value. Sweet. Now, if we go ahead and play this, we can look inside our lesson 4 coin. Here is our is spinning. You can see that little check. Boom. Did you see the check go away? I know it's kind of tiny, but the check went away. And you could also affect this. You could also change the value of this from other scripts. That's pretty convenient. You get a little bit of script-to-script communication there. Let's turn this off. Let's go back to our spin and do something else. Let's fire up the spin routine, say 5 seconds after someone touches it. What we're going to need, though, is a debounce. So let's call that local. I like to do can touch if the debounce is for a touched event. Let's make it true. I'm not going to do a bool val for that because this is all going to be internal to the script. But if you figure out that you might need to talk to it someplace else in your code, you can do that. Now you know how, right? You got the bool val. All right, so we have our can touch. What should we do with can touch? I think I'm going to put it inside the on touch. I go say if can touch, then let's go down here and add our end. As soon as we touch it, let's say can touch equals false. Now this won't execute anymore when people are touching it. Someone touches it once, it's got to start up again before it starts executing the code inside this if statement, right? We haven't done it. We haven't quite finished that yet. We could do a task.wait, but I think I'm going to be a little more sophisticated. I think I'm going to do a task delay. So we have task.delay. Well, we could put our delay time, and we're going to put this in the configuration. So don't worry that I'm putting a literal in my code. A literal is when you actually just type the value instead of using a variable. All right, we're going to get our function that we are going to delay the execution of. That's going to say can touch equals true, right? And then let's turn our is spinning variable back on. Don't forget we need our value, and then we'll say true. And we got to start it up though, right? We got to start that up. So we'll say task.spawn spin coin. Sweet. So we only want to spawn that. We only want to spawn this if we know this is off, right? So we have to be able to turn it off first. It's all right. We did, right? We did right there. And then we're going to turn everything back on. Looking good. I think I might still put this task. This is where we started up initially. I think just for bookkeeping, I'm going to do a Control X. And I'm going to put this down here, right? Even though we don't need it down there, I like to spawn that coin down at the bottom. All right, now just start up after 5 seconds. Let's try. Hit play, view output. Boom, it is stopped. And any second, nice. It started up again. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Close our output window, go back to spin. What we need is a configuration folder. So if you start making models like guns and stuff like that, and you want to be able to change max damage or reload time, stuff like that, you don't want it in the code. You don't want your other friends who are helping you develop the game to have to look through it, or if you share the model, you don't want people to have to figure it out. So where do you put the configuration? If it's depending on if it's model, if it's for the whole model, put it under the whole model. If it's only for a single object or a single thing in the model, then put it under that thing, right? Keep it as close to what you have to configure as possible. Do a plus sign, and this is just a regular folder, but they put a little gear on it. They might have some extra things on it, but it's basically a folder. We used to just call it configuration a few years ago. Now, on that configuration, what should we do? Let's add a few things. Let's go ahead and add, how about an X the X degree rate, the change, the spin speed, basically. I think I'm going to get a number value for that, right? Because we might want to do decimals and stuff. Let's call that X degree rate, right? And then I'll keep it 0, right? I'll keep it 0 for now. I'm just going to copy this twice. Control D, whoops, click it, Control D, Control D. I'm going to make one for Y. I'm going to make one for Z. That way you can make it spin other ways without going into code, changing it like we did down here, right? Let's get our Z. Nice. And we'll make the default the Y. So go ahead and click on your Y degree rate. 5. And then you could speed it up, right? You could make that like 10 or 15 if you wanted to go faster. Now let's get our configuration folder. So I'll call it config, and it's going to be on the coin, wait for child, configuration. And then we can get a variable for, let's call it X degree rate. So that's the rate of change. It's going to be in the config, wait for child, X degree rate, right? We're going to do that for the Y and the Z. I'm just going to copy this, Control C, Control V, and we're going to make that a Y. We're going to make that a Z, and we're going to make this a Y, and we're going to make this a Z. Right? Now remember, it has those crazy values, dot values on the end. So when we get down here for our Y value, let's get our Y degree rate, Control C, and we had hard coded that into 5. We'll do a Control V to paste it, and then dot value, right? And we're going to need one for X and Z. Control C, copy, and I'll put one here for X, and then one down here for Z. All right. Now in the shareable game that I put the link to in the description where you could download it, I didn't add the Z. So you'd have to do that if you just copied that game. All right. So we'll have the X and the Z. All right. And we can add, let's go ahead and add this too. That 5-second delay. Let's get a configuration value for that. And I didn't do that one for the demo either. So we'll just add it though. It's not that hard. Hit the plus. And then I'll do, we could do an int value, or you could do a number value, right? In case you want decimal, maybe 4.5 seconds. So I added, we got this value here, and we'll call this something like start delay or something like that, or pause or something. Coin pause. Name it whatever you want, as long as it makes sense. But remember, we're going to have to include it in the code. I think I'll make it a 5, right, for now. And we'll go to the top. We already have our config folder, so we'll just do something like, how about coin pause? And got to spell it. Oh, I spelled it wrong twice. Coin pause. And that still might be spelled wrong for all I know. Wait for child, and then coin pause. Now, get that, coin pause. I better copy it because you saw how I spell things, right? Let's go down to delay. Boom, pasted it there, right? That's our delay. And don't forget your value. Now we could try this out. And we could modify this very easily without going into code. Maybe you want to have 5 different coins, maybe different values. One spinning on the X, one spinning on the Y, one spinning on the Z. So I will go ahead, hit play. Looking good. Do we have any errors? Check for errors. Nope, no errors. It stops. It should stop about 5 seconds. And it starts again. Cool. And in order to test the other values, let's just go ahead and make another coin, right? So under the lesson 4 model, I'm going to shrink this down. I'm going to do a Control D. My collisions are off. So it's going to copy in place. It's going to duplicate in place, right? So collisions were off there. Let's move this out, right? And then let's open it up. Maybe we'll make this configuration. How about we just spin this one on the Z, right? So Z, I'm going to make it about the same rate. How about a 5? And then I'll make this coin pause 2 seconds, right? Let's try it out. right? So that's flipping. Oh, you know what? We didn't turn off the Y. So it's doing Y and Z. That's all right. That's pretty cool. So this should just be a 2-second pause. One. Yep, that's it. And that one should be a longer one. So if we run through them, oh, and if you keep running through them, you're not going to reset the pause, right? Because we have a debounce statement for that to make sure that doesn't happen. Sweet. All righty. I will see you in the next video where we do a leaderboard with some pickups.